Imagine this. You take a bite of a sandwich, and you might think those carbs just turn into sugar and rush straight into your bloodstream. But as a scientist, I can tell you that's not what actually happens. Before any glucose shows up in your blood, there's a critical step happening in your small intestine. Enzymes, or tiny biological machines, have to break down those carbohydrates into simple sugars your body can absorb. If they don't break down, they can't be absorbed. But once they do, they can quickly spike up your blood sugar. And that raises an important question. What if we could slow that step down? That's exactly what we set out to explore with Reducose. Reducose is a standardized extract from mulberry leaves, and it works right at that point of digestion. It partially blocks key carbohydrate digesting enzymes, allowing carbs to be converted into glucose more gradually. In practical terms, that means that glucose enters the bloodstream at a slower, steadier pace, helping reduce those sharp post-meal spikes. This, in turn, helps you have steadier energy. We didn't just look at this in theory. So far, we've tested in over 13 studies. I'm going to break some of those down for you. We started with simple carbohydrates. One of the first studies at the University of Southampton, we gave 40 healthy adults 50 grams of maltodextrin, a rapidly absorbed carbohydrate, along with Reducose, and we observed a slower increase in blood levels of both glucose and insulin and noticeably lower peaks. After seeing this effect with maltodextrin, we wanted to know whether or not the same thing would happen with everyday sugars people consume all the time. Researchers at Oxford Brookes Center for Nutrition and Health showed that consuming 75 grams of sugar with Reducose, peak glucose and insulin responses dropped by up to 40%, instead of that sharp spike and crash that you could sometimes see on your CGM. Their response curve became much smoother. Seeing the effect with table sugar was encouraging, but the real test was still ahead. People don't just consume isolated sugars. They eat real meals that include protein and fats, along with carbohydrates and sugars. So to answer that question, we conducted a different randomized, double-blind, placebo-controlled crossover study at the Oxford Brookes Center for Nutrition and Health. 37 healthy adults completed 4 test visits after fasting overnight. Before each meal, they received either a placebo or varying doses of Reducose. Then they consumed a standardized meal, which was an egg salad sandwich on white bread. We tracked their glucose and insulin levels over 3 hours. What we found was consistent across all doses. Post-meal glucose levels were significantly lower compared to placebo. Total glucose exposure decreased by approximately 30 to 33%, and peak glucose levels were reduced and remained within the normal range. Insulin responses followed the same pattern, decreasing by about 31 to 38%, indicating that the body required less insulin to manage the same meal. In other words, we observed smaller, more gradual increases in both glucose and insulin, even after a realistic carb-heavy mixed meal. And importantly, Reducose was well tolerated, with no increase in common digestive side effects. Our findings show a clear progression from carbohydrates to simple sugars to everyday meals. Across all conditions, Reducose consistently slows carbohydrate digestion at the enzymatic level and smooths out post-meal glucose and insulin responses, all by targeting that one critical, often overlooked step, which is how carbohydrates are broken down before they even reach the bloodstream.